Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
And welcome back, everybody. I want to talk about creative expression and how that can make you mentally feel so much better. And that's something that is definitely in his wheelhouse as a licensed clinical psychologist. And he's back with us. And to make us feel a lot better, John Gerson is back on the program. Hi, John. How you doing today?
Well, that's a big introduction. I hope to make you all feel better. That's my that's my goal in life as a psychotherapist, as a psychologist, to help people to get to feel better. So, as I mentioned last time we were together, individual psychotherapy and couples therapy are, of course, the sine qua non that really help people to change. But in addition to that, we have a whole other toolbox of methods that can help people adjunctively to move themselves forward in terms of their own group. So one of them has to do with trauma and what's called trauma-informed yoga. So people who are devotees of trauma-informed yoga are usually those who have been traumatized themselves in their lives. And the phrase trauma informed has to do with the kind of yoga that is differentiated from non-trauma informed yoga, which involves making sure that the practitioner doesn't touch the person who is doing yoga, because touching for someone who's experienced trauma in their lives can feel very overwhelming and invasive. So it's the use of yoga, but without touching the individual, so that the yoga can expand and help the individual to contact parts of his or her psyche and body that have been touched by trauma. So that's something that we offer.
Wow. And yoga is so impactful. I've got friends that have gone through medical situations, and it has been a game changer. One friend, out of nowhere, he needed a double bypass, but he found out he had like days to live. And it was just a random thing where he didn't feel right. And they did some tests on him. Moving past all of that, he now does yoga and has since he had a chance to. And out of nowhere, he just started doing yoga, and it changed his life. It has made him a more spiritual person, more active person. Big difference.
Makes a big difference. And
Yeah,
as long as we're talking about spiritual ways of helping, reminds me of the use of Reiki, which is a Japanese art
sure.
that, if you will, involves the transmission of universal energies
Yep.
through the practitioner's hand to the individual who's needing that kind of help. So Reiki is yet another adjunctive tool for people to use who are involved in who are engaged in helping themselves, whether they're engaged in individual psychotherapy or not. They're needing to change, and that's a kind of
Can I
hands-on.
share the a Reiki quick
Yeah.
story? I only did Reiki for the first time. I want to say it was just about a year ago. Just about a year ago. The practitioner was 1,500 miles away.
Yeah.
We didn't even talk. It was a quick talk, set up phone call. And she said, on this date, get in a comfortable place. She texted me beforehand that day, that evening. I'm like, yeah, sure, all set to go. And she did her thing. And about 45 minutes later, she texted me back and she said, a couple of things I want to share with you. Now, first of all, for me, I felt something go from my feet to my head back down to my feet. I tried to discount it, thinking that, all right, it's in my head. I know she's doing something. Am I really feeling it? But I really felt like I was. I felt better days later, lighter, more clarity. But here was the game changer for me. And this is the first time I ever had it. And it happened to be Reiki. She says to me in a text, while I was doing the session, had this visual of you taking me on a journey on a little boat and going through like reeds and weeds and things. And we're looking at little sea life you were showing me. And she goes, I don't know what it is, but I felt I needed to share that with you. It's a kind of a strange thing that came out of it. And I said to her, wow, going kayaking in those areas is my Zen spot. That's how I getaway. That's how I relax. I'll just go there, pop open a drink, put my feet up and just float and just think. And there's no way that she would have been able to know that.
Mm,
You can't go on Facebook
mm,
and find it. And so random, but so accurate. And that was my double validation that this whole Reiki thing is
mm,
real. She
mm.
somehow had to energetically connect with me.
Yes, there's something to it that can't be denied. You know,
Absolutely.
even though you're not able to touch it with your hands, it's not material. It's in the airwaves. It's happening.
Yeah.
Happened to you. It happened to her.
Yeah,
Yes,
exactly.
it's a wonderful example of, I guess, what we're talking about is trust in a universal energetic presence.
Yes, yes,
Presence.
absolutely. And
Yeah.
it's been scientifically proven over decades that energy exists. We are all energy. We emit vibrations and energy. So does this piece of paper. So does the chair you're sitting on. Different types of
Mm-hmm.
energy.
Mm-hmm.
But it's possible to have somebody harness that energy and work with it to make you feel better.
Mm-hmm. You remind me of the phrase, matter is the densest form of spirit. Matter is
Mhm.
the densest form of spirit. If you can imagine that spirituality, or what is spirit, once in a physical form, becomes something that's hard, like the chair that you're sitting on and the
Sure.
microphone you're speaking into, right?
Yeah,
Yeah.
very
Well,
true.
let me continue a little bit.
Sure.
I want to talk about an obstacle to the creative process. Major obstacle, as far as I'm concerned, is self-criticism. And this goes to, all forms of creativity, whether we're talking about art, painting, or making music, playing an instrument, singing a song. As a matter of fact, it reminds me that Johnny Mathis and Ella Fitzgerald, among two well-known singers, um, both experienced nausea and anxiety symptoms just before they perform,
Wow.
regardless of how experienced they are, how famous they are. So it's
Wow.
a yeah, it just goes on. And one of the things that I've done to help people deal with self-criticism, who are artists, is to employ guided imagery and kind of hypnotherapy. So hypnotherapy involves, first of all, the let's see, how do I want to talk about this? First of all, discovering if that person can be hypnotized, can be taken to a deeper level of consciousness. And then, if that's possible, then we get to uncover elements of the individual's psyche, if you will, that weren't so available in a non hypnotic condition. So, guided imagery is kind of related to the use of hypnosis and hypnotherapy, although one doesn't have to be in trance in order uh, for this to work. So typically, what I've done is to ask people, first of all, to just breathe and listen to the sound of my voice, listen to my own breathing, and help them to bring down any experience of tension. And I frequently use as a metaphor for this, mercury in an old-fashioned thermometer. And if they can breathe the mercury down, heartbeat by heartbeat, they descend into deeper levels of relaxation. And from there, what I've done with people is to have them picture their self-critical agent as if they were, having a conversation with that entity, the that part of the individual that's saying, you can't do it, you're doing it wrong. What gives you the right to do it at all? Even though you think you're an artist or a musician, you're off base.
Hmm.
So that self-critical voice has to be seen and addressed. And I think that self-critical voice, as I said, gets strength from, or imposes itself, whether we're talking about being a writer, such as to say, well, that last sentence really stinks. I'm not going to go with that, or the book is not going to go anywhere. I may as well give it up. And I shouldn't even practice the piano because I'm not going to get anywhere. It stinks. So that kind of negative self-speak gets in the way of the freedom to create. Yeah.
I totally got it. You're talking to somebody who wanted to be a syndicated cartoonist.
Ah,
And that it was, radio, broadcasting, art, cartooning, and they both overlapped for a couple of years. And then I went into broadcasting, almost became syndicated. But when I was like 10 years old up until 24, I was drawing cartoons. And just what you said, I would self-criticize myself and, rip it up and do it again, rip it up and do it again.
yeah, yeah,
Meanwhile, if you looked at it, the two drawings would be the same. You'd say they're both great. I
right,
don't even
right,
detect a difference between the two,
right.
but that's what we do to ourselves. And when I connect my dots, I was bullied as a kid. I was overweight. I think that just what we're talking about today, I think that, or I know that me drawing cartoons was my outlet.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
Exactly what we're saying.
mm-hmm.
Unfortunately, I was very critical of it, wanted to make sure that, it was perfect. Nothing's perfect. And again, they probably looked the same to you. You wouldn't even know the difference. But to me, that little, let me just do it again.
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm. Thank you for sharing that. Yeah, yeah. I'm a musician and I play piano and I'm a singer. And so it often happens for me that I'll hear the critical voice saying, you shouldn't even pretend to be doing what you're doing because you stink at it. And yet other people will say, gee, I really like what you're doing. As I presume, Steve, that people have said to you, those drawings are really out of sight. I really like them. Even though the inside of you is saying, no, no, they're not any good. So,
Same exact thing, and even on the broadcast side, years ago, people would say certain things. Hey, you sound great. You do a great job, and I would like, no, I could do better. I could do better. It takes a long time to get to that point where you can accept yourself and say, yeah, all right, I'm pretty good.
I'm pretty good, pretty
Yeah,
good. As
yeah,
you say, nothing's perfect, but I'm pretty good, or
yeah.
I'm good enough. I can fake it till I make it, but the faking is often not faking. It's often that which takes place away from that self-critical voice. Well, I'm just going to try this. I'm going to throw it against the wall
Yep.
and see what sticks. That there's real freedom in that, and
Absolutely. How do you get to that point? And I know we're pivoting a little bit here,
yeah.
John, based on what we're talking about. We'll get back on track, but how do you get to that point where you don't self-criticize and you accept your talents, I guess, or accept you for who you are?
I like the question. I think it has to do with being able to say, this is good enough. That's an important phrase in psychology and psychotherapy and family therapy. Good enough. We speak about, I'm going to divert a little bit. We speak about mothering as good enough. If we have a good enough mother, then we're in pretty decent shape to develop feelings of security in ourselves. There's no perfect mother, so we need a good enough sense of ourselves to
Yep.
be able to say, okay, the work is pretty darn good. I like it. Maybe it'll be better next time. Reminds me of at least one famous author. I can't remember his name right now. Who wrote the Martian Chronicles? Bradbury.
Uh,
Bradbury said he was looking back at some of his work, some of his early work, and said, this could have been a lot better. I could have done this better. And we know that Ray Bradbury was a prolific genius. So even someone at his level is saying, no, it could have been better. So,
I think it also is, John, that if I could go back and speak to myself, my younger self, call it, as a child, as a teen, I would tell myself, don't worry about what people think. Why are you worrying about what they're
mm-hmm,
thinking?
mm-hmm, mm-hmm,
Because why are we critical? We sometimes we're critical of ourselves, but more times than not, just in the examples we were given personally of ourselves, we wonder what other people are going to think. How are they going to judge us? Just you got to
mm-hmm,
get to that point where it's
mm-hmm,
like, yeah, I'm not going to worry about what they think. It's
mm-hmm,
okay.
mm-hmm.
All right.
Yeah. Dance as if no one's watching,
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
Sing as if no one's listening, and be in a way pure, kind of pure spirit in the universe. Just let uh, your who you are just kind of expand into the world, and for better or for worse.
Unleash your energy because you know what? If you're not that good, people are going to pick up on the fact that you don't care. You feel good about what you're doing. You're giving them great energy about even just watching you. And that's good. That's it. You really accomplished what you
hmm
really wanted to do. And,
hmm
you make yourself feel good singing or whatever you're doing.
Yeah.
But also
Yeah.
others. I mean, I was at some event a couple of months ago, and there was an older woman that decided to go up and sing. They kind of egged her on a little bit, and she, maybe wasn't the best singer, but man, she had spirit. And that
hmm
I don't remember her singing. I just remember what I felt from her,
Right.
and just
Right.
not caring. Just, I'm gonna go do my thing. All right, there you go.
Beautiful. She was a free spirit and she did that. That's
Yeah,
wonderful. And she
yeah.
didn't really care. She just put it out there, and whoever got her, and who didn't get her, didn't get her.
And that's
So,
it.
right. That's it. Yeah. 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 Yeah.
So creative expression, some of those other things that we can do, to make ourselves feel better mentally.
Well, yeah, I want to talk about another tactic that can be used to reduce the anxiety that comes from the anticipation of performing. And, again, whether this is writing or singing or playing an instrument or whatever the performance.
Public speaking. It's like that. That if top five list of the most stressful things anybody says, that's
Public speaking.
yeah, that's
Yeah.
a
And
yeah.
you're very good at it, Steve.
Thank you. And I
Well,
appreciate that, John. But there was a time not even far off that, it would bother me. Like
mhm.
and I'm talking even, 10 years ago, I would look at something, somebody, yeah, can you speak at this charity event? And I was like, yeah, no, I'm not available. Yeah, I was available. I just didn't feel comfortable. And it got to a
Mhm.
point where it's like, I don't really care.
Yeah.
Preparation is everything as long as you're prepared. That's the
Yes.
key. But
Yeah. You
short
have
of
to be
that, yeah,
right. 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 Yeah. Preparation is key.
yeah.
And there's some other things that can be used. Well, I'll stay with that. Other things that can be used to help you or help an individual who's about to perform and is concerned about that. And that is to journal what are the thoughts and the feelings going forward, and to reread those entries back to oneself, maybe over time, and see how the journal entries, if there's been growth,
Wow.
present the individual as being, more and more ready to go forward with whatever it is that's creative.
I love that idea. And I haven't yet journaled like I should be, just in general. But they say there's such a positive connection going from the mind to the hand when you write something that it almost etches it into your subconscious. Wow, I
hmm
love that.
hmm hmm
Heard about writing it down, but not about that. That's a really good idea.
My wife and I are ready to do a webinar in which we're asking people to journal dreams that they've had, and to write down the dreams, and then to, once they're with us, to paint the dreams. These are all people who are artists, to paint their dreams. And
Wow.
then for my wife, who's also a psychologist and an artist, with me, to take a look at what those dreams might mean. So again, that's sort of taking what's inside and bringing it to the outside, which is, of course, the goal of psychotherapy, the goal of any change agent. Bring what's on the inside and the outside, and to the outside, and take a look at it.
Wow.
So that should be fun when we get that together.
Yeah. What a great way of creative expression. And the toughest part is remembering your dreams. But then again, you should keep
Right,
write them
right,
down. You know.
right. Well, yeah, people are instructed to have a paper and pencil right next to the bed, and not make any big movements with their heads, because that can make the dream just go away.
Ah,
But just write stuff down right away, right away. So
I wonder what my painting would be. Now that I think of it. Actually, I share this. It's kind of a crazy, crazy quick story. It wasn't a dream, but about 2 months ago, I opened my front door and there's gold and black balloons in front of my door. Just a whole bunch of them, just like all grouped together
hmm,
with string. All right, maybe somebody had a party, whatever, and they landed there. I'm not near a party store, catering facility, nothing like that. I was like, okay, whatever, interesting. Rewind to 2 weeks ago, I opened my door, and now there's orange and white balloons in front of my place,
hmm,
and I can't explain it. And even for them to get there, there's a path that you have to go in between these two cement pillars. So they have to make their way in there. I'm like, somebody's playing a joke on me. Something's going on here. I look at the security camera. You see the balloons rolling down the street and
Oh,
coming up into my doorway. I'm like, what does this mean? And I asked friends, and they're like, color of orange means freedom. Everybody's analyzing it like a dream, like change is coming. It's like a rebirth. There's things, everybody has their own theory. But I got nothing. It's like a dream.
very interesting.
Yeah, I
That,
can't explain it, and I would think for sure somebody did it. But when you look at the camera, you see it like tumbleweed rolling down and then into
yeah, yeah,
the
yeah.
doorway. I don't have an, but that would be my painting. It would
That
be.
would be, yeah, be great painting. And you've already written something about it in your head.
I
That
did.
that right, that energy was just coming to you, flowing to
I
you.
Whatever it means, it'll be. I truly feel that everything will be revealed. Whatever it is, somehow, some way, it'll
Mm-hmm,
be
mm-hmm,
revealed.
mm-hmm.
Any other thoughts, in terms of these things that we can do to mentally make ourselves feel better?
Yeah, yeah. Uh, well, since we know, and we haven't talked about that, you and I haven't talked about this, that anxiety and depression are often the sources of creativity. People who are anxious and depressed sometimes use their own modality, creative modality, to free them from those symptoms. And
Hmm.
yeah,
Wow.
and yeah, so that's something to remember that when we're feeling anxious or depressed, if we can tap into the creative, then we've put light in the place of darkness. We've expressed something that's very personal and with as much freedom as possible. So that has to, in my view, discharge a lot of the anxiety and kind of lighten the spirit, lighten the spirit, so depression will reduce. So that's something to think about.
What a great idea. And I think so many people forget about that.
Yeah,
That can
yeah.
be so helpful. You're going through a tough time, go to the craft store and just, think about spending $50 on whatever it is that makes you feel good about being creative. Wasn't Van Gogh extremely depressed and had anxiety?
Well, I was just doing some reading about Van Gogh. You're totally right. He had said something about um, giving his whole self to art, and in the process, he lost his mind. And he did lose his mind. He was later found, or we suspect that he had brain tumor. But his notion for himself was he invested his heart and soul into making art, and in the process, he lost his mind.
Hmm.
Uh,
Did it go away? Do you think it was the other way around? That maybe, he was having challenges with his mind and then that led to depression. And then what helped him along the way was his art?
hmm, hmm.
I
I'm
wonder.
sure. Yeah, I believe his art helped him along the way. I think that if not for that, he probably would have become insane earlier. maybe
Yeah. Yeah.
maybe cut off both ears. I don't know.
Maybe, maybe. And what just rings? I know you love music. John, popped in my head was Don McLean and the song
Hmm.
Vincent, and how
Vincent, yeah,
nobody appreciated this artist.
yeah,
What he
yeah,
did.
yeah, 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 yeah,
Hmm.
yeah. So there's something else I'd like to talk about. Do we have time?
Literally a minute and a half, if we could.
Okay. Okay. So, as a way for people to help themselves with relaxation, is something we call 4-7-8 breathing. 4-7-8 breathing. And this involves inhaling to the count of four and then holding the breath to the count of eight. I say 4-7 and 4-7-8. Inhaling to the count of four, holding the breath to the count of seven, and then releasing it to the count of eight. And that will reduce the firing of the nervous system that's all about arousal and will bring online the parasympathetic nervous system, which is about resting and digesting. So breath is the key to relaxation. Breath is the key to relaxation.
I just wrote down 478. Hope everybody else did.
Yeah.
And that has been scientifically proven.
Yes. Yes.
It
Yeah.
does. It helps you. I remember my dad didn't have a close relationship with him, but the one thing I always remember he said, learn how to read and breathe.
That's beautiful. He said that to you.
It always stuck with me.
Yeah. I've wondered about cigarette smoking when people were smoking cigarettes. If, in addition to the addiction to nicotine, if there was something about the freedom to take a long breath, a big exhale, blowing the smoke into the room uh,
Hmm.
publicly because people were smoking, that gave them a sense of permission to take that nice, relaxing breath. So I've wondered about cigarette smoking as having to do with that as well.
That's an interesting thought.
Yeah.
Granted, they were doing harm to themselves, but actually doing good to themselves in being able to do those breaths. And the 4-7-8, you could be in uh, uh, a meeting at work that is very challenging. Nobody's going
Mm.
to know you're doing it. Nobody will
Hmm.
have any idea.
Hmm.
You're just taking a
Hmm.
breath and you know what? You just brought kind of crazy connections today, John. You just brought back a memory of the guy I worked with who had found yoga. But
Hmm.
before all of that, I'm talking decades before, and I've known him almost 30 years. Um, I remember he would be in a meeting in the middle of, everybody's there, and he was actually the supervisor, the big guy, and he would just pause for a second and go like this.
Mm. Mm.
And I would look at him like, what is wrong with this guy? And now I get
Hmm. Yeah, now you get it. So
it.
good.
Yeah. And that
Get that
maybe
from
helped him cope with, a stressful situation or maybe a decision at that time maybe he had to make.
no doubt it helped them to cope. Sure. Yeah.
Wow. Yeah. I owe him a phone call. And it was on my mind today about something, and this reinforces it. John, always great talking with you. If your website is your name, right?
Yeah, drjohngerson.com, drjohngerson.com.
And that's GERSON.com.
Yeah,
Uh,
right.
a free discovery call if somebody wants to talk just for a couple of minutes and find if it's a right fit.
Oh, I would welcome that, of course. Sure.
Yeah, a lot of great ideas today on the creative side, and love to learn how the dream painting exercise works.
Yeah, yeah, yeah. It's always good talking to you, Steve.
You too, John. Thanks a lot.
Okay, take care.
We'll be right back.
Are you looking for even more of the podcasts and hosts that you love? The Podcast Business News Network is proud to announce that you now have even more ways to listen live. Check out the MyTuner Radio, online radio box, and Simple Radio apps on iOS and Android, or find us online. Search for Business News Network on mytuner-radio.com, or search Podcast Business News Network on streama.com and onlineradiobox.com/US. Take your podcast on the go and don't miss a minute of the action.
Broadcasting from the business capital of the world, this is the Podcast Business News Network.
For nearly 2,000 severely injured veterans, everyday life has become filled with barriers.
Day-to-day simple tasks can become pretty daunting.
I have to carry my chair up 2 flights of steps or have somebody do it for me.
What scares me the most is just the falling.
When I'm struggling with my house, I think, to have that one great barrier just knocked down, it's crucial.
Home for Our Troops is a wonderful nonprofit that builds a
mortgage-free, fully adaptive, handicap-accessible house. And there's no catch.
It'll be our very first home that we've ever owned.
This is a game changer.
This is where your life begins again.
We need you to join us in completing this important mission. Please visit hfotusa.org and help build homes and rebuild lives.
Because of you, everything's going to be okay.